Let me introduce myself. I'm Thomas Mulready. We're here with Megan Young, Interim Director of Spaces. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're tremendously busy. And I just first want to thank you for your service and stepping up into this sort of interim role here, because that may or may not have been your plan at the time. But Christina Vassallo stepped away. It wasn't unexpected, but there is a search, and in the meantime, you've stepped in, and there's been so much to do since you've gotten here. I mean, I'm sure nobody could have anticipated this. So thank you for your service. Just tell me what it's been like. I mean, for you as an artist, a working artist, and involved in the spaces community for a while, to all of a sudden have this staring you right in the face.
Yeah, well, let me first say thank you again for having me and for focusing on spaces and the work that we've been doing. It's really great to amplify. And then, yeah, as an artist, one of the things that's really helpful is our mission is so clear for spaces to support artists. And it answers a lot of questions, and having that experience gives me a chance to really fill in some of those answers. Think about that perspective and what artists are going through and what they need, and some of their unique situation too, that, you know, these freelancing non-employees, sometimes between all kinds of organizations and how they're operating. So it's been good to be able to step in and know a little bit about that background. And then it makes it very easy to connect with our artists as well. And so reaching out to them in places where, you know, they're going to be still active in forums and things.
Right.
Yeah, Spaces has been in pretty high gear, which is both good and bad. So we are doing the emergency relief granting.
Right.
We've continued. We had artists in residence when the pandemic really finally hit ground. Those two exhibitions are up in our galleries. They're on view by appointment this week. And then we've already initiated a second round of artists in residence. So we've continued.
Exactly. Yeah, you've, first of all, I don't know if people realize Spaces it's an artist-run venue. That's where it started. It was one of the first artist-run venues in the country, really, among that first wave. And it still is, and it's still run by artists. And the mission, public-facing, is for general audiences to appreciate art, especially artists locally. But increasingly, you've kept that mission to serve the artists here locally, as well as nationally and internationally, through your exhibitions, and now through some of these really important programs. But first, I wanted to just talk about the stuff you do have going, because you've got some cool digital things up and running that people should know about. Through the end of May, at least, Baptized in the Fires of the Cuyahoga River, Veronique D'Autremont from Los Angeles. And you've got, what, like a virtual sort of walkthrough online?
Yeah, so Veronique D'Autremont was an artist in residence, and she created a project during her time in Cleveland. We do have it online. And so in our exhibition section of our website, we've included documentation in photo and then video walkthroughs, so that you can sort of feel like you're going through the gallery and even get a little bit of detail into the pieces. She also included some detail of the videos that are in the gallery, so you can watch those at home as well.
Right.
She's still working on a book from that project that'll be published and available through Spaces as soon as it is ready, with some original text and images from her exhibition. And then she's going to be releasing also the audio from in the gallery for public, so that they can listen to her interviews from Cleveland during her time.
Yeah, that was the piece I wasn't quite catching, was the audio that was running through those speakers there. So there's really nothing like being in situ, in front of the work of art. But you also have a digital exhibition, I believe, called Space Station, that's up through June 12th, right? Which is 100% digital?
Yep. So we've had a program called The Vault for a long time now. And when we were at the old Spaces, we had a room in old vaults. Yeah. So this is following with that. When we moved into our new location, we kept a viewing room. We have a screening room that we've used. But some of the digital artists that have come through spaces, they want to display that work in different ways. So we've also done this continuation of that project, that program. We've presented things on our front window for people on Detroit Avenue to see, and we've presented in our main galleries as well. So what we started to do internally is look at how artists want to display their digital works and what's best for the work. When the pandemic hit, it became very clear that nobody was going to be sitting in a viewing room in our galleries, potentially even when we are opening and reopening. That concept of sitting indoors in a smaller space is definitely one of the lower level things that anybody's going to be interested in for some time. So we shifted that time-based arts program online.
Good.
And we launched the space station.
Yeah.
Our current artist is on view through June 12th. So we have a work by Dana Lynn Harper.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yes. So Dana Lynn Harper has a piece up right now, a new commission that Spaces commissioned. It's called Ritual Object Carrier 1. And this was the launch of our space station. This is an online-only digital media. And we were looking for artists that wanted to experiment in this forum, artists that aren't typically digital artists.
Right.
So Dana, for an example, makes sculpture primarily. And this was her first or early transition into using those sculptures in a digital way.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue. The next artist that is going to be coming up is Michael Workman. So he'll launch a piece into that program in June. And we have 6 artists lined up through the rest of the summer into October.
So you guys were ahead of the curve with that. You're all ready to go with digital online work. I love it. And when I look at your mission, or part of your mission anyway, Spaces has an unwavering passion for and commitment to supporting artists and engaging community.
Right.
The artist piece is just as important, it seems, as the community piece. Most people think a gallery is there to present to the public and maybe sell artwork. This organization really is committed, and you were really one of the first to reach out and say, we're going to help artists in ways above and beyond just exhibiting their work and connecting them with constituents. And there was a fund already, right, that you started last year, I believe, the Satellite Fund.
Yes.
That was already up and running to help fund artists in need. So talk about that and how prescient you were with that. That was brilliant.
There are so many things that have just aligned really well to set us up as an organization to be able to serve artists. Going back, as you were saying, our current mission, Spaces is the resource and public forum for artists to explore and experiment. It is artist facing. We have in our mission, we have in our operations that by supporting the artists, the best thing for their work to grow and to hit that next level is to include community. In Cleveland, we've noticed through our residency program, Cleveland is an incredibly warm community in telling artists their very honest responses and opinions and questions. We're maybe an abnormal art market in that people aren't always coming to the gallery to be seen, but they actually come to look at the work. And they respond audibly, and they fill out surveys, and they're very, very loud in that feedback. So as we're connecting artists with community, people think about that as, a service to the community, which it is, but it serves as the artist as well.
Right.
And a lot of the artists that we work with, they respond about how much that challenges them to find ways, to find access points, to make their work broadly, available or more clear, or just to really drive home their intent. And that is part of how we develop these new funds. So last year, we did initiate 2 new artist funds, one of which is still going pretty much in its original format. In connection with Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, we are a regrantor for the Urgent Art Fund. And that started last year. We had 5 awardees. Each get a $5,000 award to create a new project. And those were awarded last year, and we're actually in the process of continuing that this year. The idea behind it was that, space is included. It's really hard for a project that needs to happen in a timely manner to get institutional support. Because, for our timelines, we're we're already planning at least a year out, sometimes 2 years out, and that's pretty typical for galleries and museums, that they might have an open call, but it's not going to be the next month that the work is in the gallery. So the Urgent Art Fund changes that time frame a little bit. And if an artist is interested in doing a project next month, they can almost do that. They can be funded, they can know that they're funded. That helps them respond to things on the ground a bit faster. Yeah.
So it was like for urgent art, right? That was urgently needed, like now, to respond to things even before this pandemic.
Right.
You recognized that there was this timeline issue with getting funded and trying to stay alive and doing all that. But it was to create art. Now, the Satellite Fund, I understand, was really a response to need, and that money can go towards paying rent or any other expense.
Yeah. So the Satellite Fund originally, as it was formed in 2019, had a similar purpose. It was project-based funding. And it's part of a regranting program by the Andy Warhol Foundation. They have 16 regranting sites. We're one of them. We were added on, to our first round last year, and we awarded 10 fellowships. And there was a large purpose for that. One of the things is that direct funding to artists in our area is pretty uncommon, and unrestricted funding to artists for their projects to do work outside of these institutional spaces. So that was awarded last year to 10 people. We had Warhol Foundation reached out to spaces and to their other funders when the pandemic hit, and they gave us permission, but really encouraged us to use these funds for what they had anticipated was going to be a more pressing need, which was artists' basic, human needs. Yeah. And so they allowed us to shift the purpose of that funding for these awards that had already been established, and then set up this emergency regranting fund. Yeah. So that's what we did, and it's called the Satellite Fund Emergency Relief Program. And we closed our first round. And so we've already awarded 60 artists grants of $1,000 each. Those artists applied through a pretty simple application process to show that they did have a visual arts practice and that they self-declared a need, that they had a pressing need. And so then those artists were reviewed by a panel of 3 distinguished arts professionals, and they were awarded. Some are listed on our website, but then some did choose to remain anonymous.
So then that, I understand that program, once April 2020 came around, it was sort of refocused towards the pandemic. And was there more money then available to that? Is that when the Cleveland Foundation got involved with that program?
Right. So we refocused the initial grants, which was $100,000 into those granted awards. And then it is also supporting Space's administration of the funds. And we were allowed to seek additional funders. The Cleveland Foundation was the one that was very interested and able to fund and support it. We were given a grant of $50,000 additional for the purpose of the emergency funding. That's how we're able to do the round 2. All of that 50,000 is being redistributed. Right.
And I love the fact that on your website, not only do you have these amazing cash awards, because there are fellowships available in this community through the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture that other communities just don't have. And I should say that the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture stopped those artist fellowships in 2016, and now they no longer exist, and it's all pretty much project-based funding. But you guys have gone further on your site at spacescle.org/COVID-19-resources, which you put a whole bunch of other resources for money, like artist relief for these $5,000 grants. Arts Cleveland is offering a total of $250,000 emergency loan fund, mutual aid fund for LGBTQI, Foundation for Contemporary Arts Emergency Grant Fund for COVID-19. That's fabulous that you guys have helped point the way for the community here.
One of the things we're noticing, even though these grants that we're giving out, $1,000 is significant. But if we really realistically think about rent food and basic needs, I can't imagine that would get somebody through more than a month if they had nothing else. And I know that there's been some federal stimulus, there are some things that are in the works. We have been hearing artists talk about how difficult it's been to navigate the unemployment situation, even though they've extended that now to contracted 1099 workers. And so in realizing that every effort is probably going to not hit the mark quite as much as we'd like, we did start to extend and point artists toward what else is happening. And we're interested to continue doing that because there are a lot of organizations, and it's been, everyone pitching in all at once. And so it's not as if it's easy to get this information out. So yeah, amplifying what else is being done in the area, and being willing to partner with those programs as well, to share with people, oh, okay, you're not a visual artist, but there is this fund particularly for musicians. And, we want people to get access to these resources.
You have worked throughout the world, really, in your artwork. You also helped run a gallery, Solid Ground, in Chicago, a performance art ensemble, Meg Louise, that you performed internationally. You've taught at Ball and Wallace, University of Akron, Kent State. And you've made a home here now. What do you see? I'm going to just put you on the spot about how Cleveland is a little different than other places. I have my opinions. I think it's cool, obviously, but and I have my reasons for that.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for me is that there is such a strong arts community here, and there are strong institutions, but there's also strong individual artists and small ensemble and medium size. We've got the range. What are you seeing that's different here in this region from where you've done your work throughout the country, in Chicago and around the world?
It is a great question.
I mean, you were saying, just to build off of earlier, that people in Cleveland, the audiences, are very open to telling you what they think.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Unlike places where I think what you were getting at is, when you go to an exhibit, maybe in New York, people are sort of there for each other. It's a performance almost, and maybe they're not as honest as they really could be. Whereas here, there's none of that pretense, and people seem to be more. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's just what I heard earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna go back a bit and say, when I first came to Cleveland, it was 2006, and I had finished my undergrad, and I was looking to do, my own arts practice. And what first attracted me to the area was that there were opportunities for people just starting out. And at that time, but I would say especially now, Cleveland is doing a really good job of that, of supporting emerging artists and supporting new projects, even if it's an artist who's been working for a long time that wants to start a new organization type thing. And that isn't happening everywhere. This access into a new community. I hear people that move to Cleveland and they're surprised by being welcomed in, and being welcomed in as a Cleveland artist right away. Maybe somebody who was working in San Francisco for 10 years and was never really accepted into that community, but here immediately. And so I will say that is different. People in Cleveland are very generous with their attention. And they're not as maybe dismissive as I've seen elsewhere. They're not going to throw ideas out just because it's new or hasn't been done yet. So I was really always intrigued by that in Cleveland. We have going for us a lot of space. I'm interested to see how this changes or going forward. But artists can afford a studio. For a time, I had a 4,500 square foot living and performance space in Midtown. And when I tell people a view of Lake Erie, when I tell people that, they cannot even believe it. And I was living off freelance artist work. So it wasn't out of that price range. We have an abundance of space. We have a pretty flexible access from, administration in getting artists into those spaces, and making use of them in renting them, even as those rents are going up at affordable rates, at rates that, you can still have events, you can still have a studio. I'm wondering what's going to happen with that going forward. Eagerly, hoping it continues, hoping that our market supports us as we try to keep these artists here. And then, yeah, like you were saying, so it just feels like in Cleveland, it really keeps the community at the center of the art, which has been my practice for a really long time. Some artists, they want to be in their own space, making things from inside themselves with very little, interaction from the outside world until it's done, maybe. That wasn't my process. And so I really appreciate having people and having this community that will engage with work in process as it's being developed. That, I don't see people thinking, that it's not for them. In fact, I see people inviting themselves into the work and assuming or knowing it's for them. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I see it a lot as well. Having done a performance art festival, which is kind of as far out there as you can even imagine, in Cleveland,
Right.
people were like, really? In Cleveland? It was like, yeah, the audiences here really, they get it. They took to it. They were very open to it. And you could see that it wasn't going to go over in other places where there's so many distractions or just too much art world stuff going on. Here, people focused on it. They gave it a lot of appreciation, and you just see that in film, young filmmakers here. You see it with music. You see it with movement artists. You've got enough space here, like you said, to actually rent a rehearsal studio. You can't do that in the major cities.
Right. And have some performance venues or gallery spaces that are, considered sort of off-grid.
Yeah.
Have them in local neighborhoods. I've seen that with film, with dance, with visual arts. There's a lot of smaller neighborhood galleries, neighborhood performance spaces. I've seen these salon-style gatherings of dinners, artists sharing their work, the painting parties. So it's really active in that way, yes. Oh, and then we were talking about pretense. I do love Cleveland for not letting something fly if it really doesn't hit home. Nobody pretends. Nobody does the Emperor's New Clothes and thinks, oh, maybe that should be great because somebody else said it was great. They just come out and they're like, no, I really am not into that. It's fantastic.
It's charming.
I wanted to tell you, the Performance Art Festival that you had run, I don't know how long you did or when it finished, but when I was at Columbia in Chicago, Jenny Magnus still remembered having presented in that festival, still remembered it as being a launching point for some of her work. Cora Rodella had performed, I think, with some international artists as well. Yeah. So it's those types of grassroots, initiatives that even as they come and go in their need, they still support the artists that are here, and they've, really kept the artists here and growing. Yeah,
I think all those archives now are at the Calvin Smith Library at Case Western Reserve. Okay. We shot video of that. It was 12 years of that, really.
Yes.
And thousands of hours of video and photos. So we know that it influenced a lot of people here locally, because you'd see artists coming up and watching one year, and then they'd apply the next year, and they were awesome. It was like they really were studying. And we saw artists come back time and time, because we had a performance open. So you could, even if you didn't make it in and get the big, huge awards of $500 or whatever we were offering, you could still come, and we'd give you like $25 and 25 minutes on the stage. And so many people took advantage of it. We had over 100 one year just taking advantage of that open. And we'd give them space and time, and they'd come year after year. So we know it served a real function for the field at the time. So yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. You mentioned that people here are very generous, and you've seen support from CAC, from the Cleveland Foundation, from Andy Warhol, which I consider in the region. And you've had individual donors, I know, step up as well here with COVID. And so I just give us a chance to tell people where they can pitch in and donate to spaces, to artists, through you guys. What's the best way for people to do that?
So the easiest way to donate to Spaces is on our website, spacescle.org, and you can click donate, and then you can donate via your credit card. For people who want to specifically support the Emergency Relief Fund, there is a spot that says designate your gift. You can write in the designation. We'll probably contact just to be sure that Everything is as expected. And then that goes directly to artists. People can also mail in if they wanted to send a donation. We accept donations for the Satellite Fund, the Emergency Relief Fund. And they can designate that through their gift. If they're sending a check via letter, they'll probably still get a call or a confirmation from me confirming that that was their intent. Spaces also has a capital fund program. So we recently purchased our building, and some donors have been, making that happen and ensuring that we have this space for many years to come. The capital fund does that. And then there's a general fund as well. So if somebody wants to donate to spaces for our exhibitions, our residencies, for the space station, they can do that. Again, online is best. Pretty easy for them, easy for us, but they're also welcome to mail that to us.
Right. And of course, join as a member and get all the member benefits. I understand you've got a movement workshop. I believe that's probably online coming up June 4th, but June 9th, you have a members preview. So tell me how you're going to do that. Is that an online preview for some of the fall exhibitions you have planned?
Yes. So our members program is for both artists and non-artists. It gives an exclusive look into the backside of making art and how it happens and all of the beautiful aspects in that way. The members preview coming up is going to be online digitally. We've been using Jitsi, so it's a different video platform. We're inviting everyone to come on, talk to the artists. What has it been like making work during this time? What are they making? How is it getting installed in the gallery? Our staff will be there as well, talking about what it's been like, managing these shifting expectations, putting work up not only in the gallery, but we're going to have some of those artists work online. And then we also have a members feature coming up. So the application program closed, but our members can apply to have their artwork featured. This will be an online situation for now. So this summer in June, we'll be opening that up, featuring some of our member work. In the fall, we'll have a member show again in our galleries.
Well, congratulations on just being so active here and really being responsive. I think that's one of the themes that we've been following up is the activism and the response. It's not so much how we're suffering, because we are all suffering together in different ways, but we're showing our true character when we respond. And that's what we like to see, is how people in our community are stepping up and responding in very positive ways. And Space is just outstanding in their support for not only the local arts community, but artists themselves in a very direct way. When you hand somebody some money when they are literally, when rent is due, when they have no money for art supplies, you are keeping art alive here. You're keeping artists alive. So thank you so much. And again, thanks for your service, Megan. We appreciate you taking a few moments here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland. Stay safe and be well. Thank you.